Hello there, you're watching World News Program live from the capital Algiers on All 24 News Channel with me, Karim Fazakri, and up next are the headlines. In Gaza, violence flares despite the ceasefire. 1 Palestinian killed. Demolitions continue in Gaza, while in the West Bank, Qanawat reports the worst surge in settler attacks in a decade. And in Lebanon, southern Lebanon, 4 people die in Zionist raids. As Algeria marks 71 years since its liberation war, Turkey's President Erdogan highlights stronger ties to boost regional stability. Putin praises the growing strategic partnership, and Nigeria celebrates Algeria's revolutionary legacy while promising closer cooperation. Also in our news, in Western Sahara file, Sahrawi President Ibrahim Ghali says there will be no talks that ignore self-determination, while the Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf says Morocco was trying to impose its agenda by force. And in Sudan, the government accuses rapid support forces of killing 300 women in El Fasher. 8 groups warn thousands are in danger as the UN says more than 13 million people have been displaced since the war began. The details right after this. Welcome back to the details. It's great to have you with us tonight. First up in our news, in Gaza, tensions are still flaring despite the ceasefire deal. A Palestinian man was killed in a Zionist drone strike on a market in the Shujaiya neighborhood of Gaza City. Local reports say nearby areas have also seen home demolitions, airstrikes, and artillery fire, especially in the south around Rafah and Khan Yunis. Health officials say 236 people have been killed and around 600 injured since the ceasefire began. Rescue teams, meanwhile, are still pulling bodies from under the rubble, more than 500 so far. Overall, Gaza's health ministry says the war has now claimed over 68,800 lives and left more than 170,000 wounded since October 2023. Meanwhile, Hamas reiterated its commitment to the Gaza ceasefire agreement, saying it remains bound by all terms, including efforts to locate and hand over the remaining bodies of Israeli captives. In a statement on Saturday, the movement also emphasized the need to advance national steps it has called for, notably forming an independent government or governing committee for Gaza and ensuring a full occupation withdrawal from the Strip. Meanwhile, the government media office in Gaza dismissed as false a U.S. Central Command claim accusing Hamas of members of looting an aid truck north of Khan Yunis. In a statement on Saturday, the office said the allegation was part of a systematic disinformation campaign aimed at undermining Palestinian security forces, who it said are ensuring the safe delivery of aid and protecting humanitarian workers. For displaced Gazans, returning home isn't that simple. Concrete yellow lines cut through neighborhoods like Jabalia, restricting their movement. Here's Yassine Rikti with the report.
In Gaza's devastated landscape, now reduced to a desert of rubble, residents who try to return to what remains of their homes face a new invisible prison. Along stretches of the Strip, yellow concrete blocks mark an imaginary line that Palestinians are forbidden to cross. Anyone attempting to move beyond it risks being shot, as has happened in the northern city of Jabalia, where danger lurks at every step. This is the yellow cube.
That marks the yellow line, and this is the location of my tent. This is where I used to live. This house belongs to my parents. There is like a room under the rubble where I'd like to settle with my family. The green line is supposed to represent the humanitarian aid points and is supposed to be active, and the yellow line prevents all access. There is none of that. There are only yellow lines. We hear gunshots. Tanks are advancing. There is no life left.
This yellow line has effectively become a new military border, imposed by occupation forces within Gaza itself. It restricts movement and deepens the isolation of thousands of displaced Palestinians, whose only wish is to go home. Yet the boundaries of this zone remain deliberately vague, resulting in the killing of civilians who unknowingly crossed it.
Fear is everywhere, 24 hours a day. We hear drones, gunshots, shelling, to force us to leave the area, but we have nowhere to go.
We are eagerly awaiting the second phase of the ceasefire agreement to resolve this problem, for the bodies to be returned and for the crossing point to reopen. The most important thing is that they withdraw from here.
According to observers, the barrier marks the first stage of occupation's so-called phased withdrawal plan. But even after such a withdrawal, Palestinians will remain confined to an area smaller than before, cementing Zionist control over the strip as international powers remain largely silent. Palestinians find themselves trapped once again, this time behind a yellow line that turns their right to return into a potential death sentence.
Meanwhile, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees says settler violence in the occupied West Bank is now at its highest level in more than 10 years. UNRWA reports that last October was the most violent month on record since it began tracking these incidents, with most attacks happening during the olive harvest, a key season for Palestinian farmers. The agency warns the situation is only getting worse and is calling for urgent protection for civilians. In another story, in Algiers, Palestinian ambassador Faiz Abaita is calling on the world to step up, and end up what he calls the ongoing oppression of the Palestinian people. Speaking on the 108th anniversary of the Balfour Declaration, he urged international support for an independent Palestinian state and praised Algeria for its long-standing backing, from hosting the 1988 declaration to helping push recent global recognition.
من على هذا المنبر نوجه رسالة إلى العالم.
From this platform, we send a message to the world, calling for urgent and determined efforts to stop the war of extermination in all its forms against the Palestinian people. We also call for concrete action to end the Israeli occupation and to enable the Palestinian people to establish their independent state, one that ensures them a life of dignity on the land of Palestine.
له الحياة الكريمة على أرض فلسطين.
Elsewhere, in Lebanon, at least 4 people were killed and others wounded after a Zionist airstrike hit a car in the southern town of Kfar on Saturday evening. Lebanon's health ministry says the strike took place in the Nabatea area and confirmed multiple casualties. The situation in the south remains tense as cross-border attacks continue to escalate. Moving on to another matter back home, Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says boosting ties with Algeria remains a top priority, calling it key for peace and prosperity in the region. In a message congratulating President Abdelmajid Tebboune on the anniversary of the Algerian Revolution, Erdogan praised the strong momentum in bilateral relations and said he's confident upcoming talks with President Abdelmajid Tebboune will push cooperation even further. On a similar note, Russia's President Vladimir Putin has hailed the strong momentum in ties with Algeria, describing the relationship as a deep and strategic partnership. In a message marking the 71st anniversary of Algeria's independence struggle, Putin said he's confident both countries will keep working closely on key bilateral and international issues, adding that their cooperation supports stability in Africa and the Middle East. Similarly, Nigeria is also stepping up its partnership with Algeria. On the 71st anniversary of Algeria's independence, Foreign Minister Yusuf Maïtma Tougar highlighted the shared vision of both countries in Africa and the African Union. He welcomed new direct flights between the nations and praised Algeria's revolution as a symbol of self-determination and inspiration for freedom movements worldwide.
The relationship between Nigeria and Algeria is rooted in a shared history, mutual respect, and a common vision for a peaceful, prosperous, and integrated Africa. As two pivotal countries on the continent, our strategic partnership remains the cornerstone of our collective aspirations for sustainable development and continental stability. Nigeria highly values the strong bilateral relations between our two countries and remains committed to deepening this cooperation across various sectors, including trade, energy, security and cultural exchange. This historic day commemorating the start of the valiant struggle for independence is a powerful testament to the resilience, courage and unwavering spirit of the Algerian people. The sacrifices made during the Algerian War of the Independence continue to be a profound source of inspiration for liberation movements throughout the world.
Elsewhere, the Algerian community in Nice and Monaco marked the 71st anniversary of the November 1st Revolution. A ceremony led by Algeria's Consul General in Nice, Fawzi Dib, brought together Monaco officials, diplomats and community members. In his speech, the Council highlighted the importance of staying connected to the homeland and serving Algeria wherever they are, a message that resonated with the community, who said they remain proud of their roots and proud to represent Algeria abroad.
Like every year, I've been invited to November 1st celebration, and I'm always pleased to attend. As you know, Algeria is a dear country to me. Thanks to our distinguished company and our partnership with National Higher School of Marine Sciences and Coastal Development in Algiers, the consulate is organizing events in Nice and Monaco.
I am very proud tonight to participate in these moments that were friendly and very inspiring. I truly felt represented among the attendees tonight, and I'm very happy to have accepted this invitation.
Moving on to another topical story, and as you followed in our headlines, Algerian Minister of State and Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf reaffirmed that Morocco attempted to impose its historical objectives by force during the latest UN Security Council session of Western Sahara, that is. Speaking exclusively to All 24 News Channel, Mr. Attaf said the initial draft to extend the MINURSO mandate was unfair and blatantly one-sided, stressing that 8 member states moved to introduce amendments to restore balance to the text.
أود أن أذكر أن بالإطار العام
I would like to recall the general framework. The Security Council holds 2 sessions a year on the Western Sahara issue. The first session in April assesses the work of the UN mission in Western Sahara MINURSO. The second session in October renews MINURSO's mandate. This time, at the second session in October, the Kingdom of Morocco sought to seize the opportunity to push through by force on the Western Sahara issue in order to advance its historical objectives. Morocco's historical objectives are well known. First, to eliminate MINURSO, either by dismantling and dissolving it or by radically changing its mandate. The second objective is to impose the so-called autonomy plan as the sole and exclusive framework for seeking a solution to the Sahrawi question. The third objective is to put an end, once and for all, to the idea of self-determination for the Sahrawi people. Those are the objectives.
On the same occasion, Algerian Minister of State and Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf revealed that Algeria pushed behind the scenes at the UN Security Council to shape a resolution supporting Sahrawi self-determination, stressing that the only viable solution must come from the 2 conflicting parties themselves at the negotiating table.
وما يقوي من ارتياحنا هو ملاحظة
What strengthens our confidence is an important observation, a notable point made by President Trump's advisor, Mr. Masad Boulos, during a television interview just a day or two ago. He emphasized exactly what I just highlighted here, stating that autonomy is no longer the only framework for resolving the Western Sahara issue. The door is open for alternative solutions. This is correct, as the agenda allows for the consideration of alternatives. Secondly, he stressed that any agreement must be reached between the parties directly involved in the conflict. This aligns with our position regarding the necessity of direct negotiations between the Sahrawis and Morocco. I must admit that in all my meetings with US officials, especially with advisor Masad Boulos, I have repeatedly emphasized this point. A solution to the Western Sahara issue can only be achieved through the parties to the conflict, namely the Kingdom of Morocco and the Polisario Front.
In the same context, Sahrawi President and Polisario Front leader Brahim Ghali says the Polisario will not join any talks that ignore the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination. Ghali highlighted that the recent UN Security Council resolution reflects efforts to find a solution, but urged the Sahrawi people and Liberation Army to stay vigilant against Moroccan maneuvers, describing the UN move as Morocco's last card following its normalization with the Zionist entity. The Sahrawi president also slammed the Moroccan king's speech as weak, accusing the monarchy of misleading its people since 1975 and of exporting internal crises, trying to mask them through UN resolutions.
The Sahrawi people are strong through their organization, through their achievement, their goals, their unity, their army and their fighters. Let us return to our eternal slogan, Army People, People Army. This is the rock on which all enemies' maneuvers, conspiracies and intrigues have been shattered. I say to the Moroccan people, enough with 50 years of distortions, 50 years of being misled about the truth. In 1975, they twisted the rulings of the International Court of Justice and gave them an interpretation that had nothing to do with reality. And today, they are once again trying to twist this recommendation to suit their own mood and to stir up the emotions of the Moroccan people with falsehoods, lies, injustice and expansionism.
In Brazil, 14 trade unions, political parties and human rights groups are speaking out for the Sahrawi people. They've submitted a petition to the UNHCR in Brasilia calling for respect for international law and an end to colonialism in Western Sahara. Elsewhere in Africa, in Sudan, the government says the Rapid Support Forces killed 300 women in just the first 2 days after taking El Fasher, with reports of torture and an ongoing abuse. Doctors Without Borders, meanwhile, warns thousands of civilians are at serious risk and is urging the international community to step in immediately. On a similar note, the UNHCR says nearly 13 million people have been forced to flee their homes in Sudan since 2023. After more than 900 days of fighting, widespread rights abuses, famine, and collapsing services, the crisis is now one of the world's worst, pushing millions to the brink of death. In another story, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian says his country is determined to rebuild its nuclear facilities stronger than before, stressing that Tehran isn't after nuclear weapons. He added that destruction of past sites won't stop Iran's progress in developing its nuclear program.
This knowledge is within our scientists. Destroying buildings and factories will not create a problem for us. We will rebuild, and with greater strength. The view they are trying to spread around the world is that we went towards nuclear in order to make a bomb, while the Supreme Leader announced and issued a fatwa that we cannot go towards a bomb.
In Ukraine, 6 people were killed in Russian airstrikes and drone attacks on Dnipro and Odessa, while a strike in Zaporizhia kept power to about 58,000 homes. Russia says its air defenses shut down 164 Ukrainian drones and repelled multiple attacks near Donetsk, capturing several Ukrainian soldiers in the process. Russian presidential spokesman Dmitry Peskov says now isn't the time for a quick Putin-Trump meeting. Speaking to TASS on Sunday, he stressed that what's needed is careful, detailed work on resolving the Ukraine conflict rather than rushing into a summit.
Hypothetically speaking, a meeting is possible, but at this point, there is no need for it. There is a need for very painstaking work on the details of the peace settlement issue.
Elsewhere, the longest government shutdown in U.S. history has had its second month, costing nearly $14 billion and leaving hundreds of thousands of federal workers unpaid. Essential services are stalled and aid programs disrupted, putting the food security of some 42 million Americans at risk. Here's Selma Nassib.
800,000 government employees have gone without pay for over a month. Government officers are shattered, and many social programs are on the brink of collapse, threatening to cut off food assistance for 42 million Americans. The situation has grown so dire that authorities in New York have declared a state of emergency.
So that's why today I'm officially declaring an emergency. This is a food emergency, and I want to unleash every tool at our disposal to keep New Yorkers from going hungry. I have to be honest. No state, including our own, can backfill the money, because I'm going to tell you a number. It's $650 million every month is what we get from the federal government, our people do, for SNAP programs. We can't backfill that, but we have some strategies.
An open confrontation has erupted over budget provisions and the funding of several federal projects, with Republicans and Democrats locked in a deepening standoff. The disagreement centers on spending priorities, social welfare allocations, and cuts to federal programs that have brought negotiations to a standstill and heightened fears of a government shutdown.
Never before in American history, not once under a Democratic president or Republican president, has SNAP funding lapsed during a shutdown. Not even in 2019 during Trump's last shutdown. In fact, Trump himself funded SNAP throughout that shutdown. So this argument that he can't do it, that he doesn't have the money, that it's not legal, is just bull.
People should be getting paid in this country. And we've tried to do that 13 times. And you voted no 13 times. This isn't a political game. These are real people's lives that we're talking about. And you all have just figured out, 29 days in, that, there might be some consequences. There are people who run out of money. Yeah, we're 29 days in.
Events are unfolding rapidly, and the political divide continues to widen, while the American people bear the heaviest burden of an unprecedented crisis, one that puts the world's largest economy to a true test between political maneuvering and social reality.
And finally, it's time to catch up on other news stories making headlines in the News in Brief. Let's follow.
Pakistan's security authorities announced that more than 350 militants were eliminated last month, according to a report released Sunday by the Pakistani Institute for Conflict and Security Studies. Security forces also arrested 22 militants during the same period, noting that most of the operations took place in Pakistan's provinces bordering Afghanistan.
Three people were killed in a U.S. strike that targeted a boat in the Caribbean Sea on Saturday evening. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth announced that the U.S. military carried out the strike on a vessel allegedly linked to a drug trafficking organization.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent called China an unreliable trade partner and warned that Washington could again threaten tariffs if Beijing moves to curb rare earth exports. Speaking on Fox News Sunday, Pesan said China's earlier threat over critical minerals had surprised him in early October.
In the UK, former Prince Andrew is expected to lose his last military title as King Charles continues removing him from public life. Last week, the King evicted his brother from his mansion to protect the royal family's reputation amid Andrew's links to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
And that's the end of our news for tonight. To catch up on any part you missed or get the latest updates, you can always visit our social media platforms. On behalf of all 24 News team, I'm Karim Zachary. Thank you for watching and bye for now.